Delta has produced some outstanding fishing in this past week. If you're coming out next week, make sure you think about doing a multi-species trip. It'll increase your chances at getting in on the action. We'll go over all of this in the report. Before that, let's take a look at a few pictures, then we'll get right into the report. All right, thanks for joining me. This is the In Deep on the Delta weekly fishing report for the week of August 31st. I have a special guest today. Christian Ostrander will be joining me in just a few minutes. So we're going to do the report really quickly. We're going to get Christian on. We're going to have Christian hopefully talk about how we can start pulling some of these bigger bass out of the Delta. So let's talk about a little bit of river business, and then we'll get right into the report. Number one, the Bass Hole Team Circuit is starting Sunday, November 3rd. That's this Sunday, November 3rd, and this is the start of the 2025 season. So if you are interested in that, make sure you give Rob a call out at the Bass Hole. I'll have his number up there so you'll know what it is. And talk to Rob. He'll get you all signed up for the 2025 Bass Hole Team Tournament Circuit. That's a Delta circuit. All the tournaments are right out of Russo's, so you local guys, it's a great tournament to fish. One other thing I want to talk about, and we'll call it the elephant on the river, and the elephant on the river right now is salmon. I just want to say a few words. Obviously, you watched the intro, you saw that we're catching some salmon out here. They're in the river. I think everybody knows that salmon regulations state that they're not legal to target. With that being said, you're going to encounter salmon out here. If you're throwing a jerkbait, if you're throwing a lipless, some type of crankbait, you're probably going to wind up with a salmon on the end of your line sooner or later. The one regulation that you really need to think about is you cannot remove salmon from the water. If you hook one, let's not get crazy. You don't have to act like you're not having fun catching it, put it that way. They're fun to catch. But if you want to pull them out of the water to take a picture, that's a no-no. Just make sure if you catch one, don't pull it out of the water. You don't want to be showing it off. It's kind of illegal. If you're out there, don't be targeting salmon. If you're fishing in an area where there are salmon and you're throwing bass baits and striper baits, that's not a big deal. But don't be out there with salmon spinners and salmon-specific baits, or else you might get popped. So that's all there is to the report as far as the river news goes right now. River conditions, we're looking at about 60 to maybe 63, 64 degree water temps. We're having a front move in. That temperature may drop a little bit. Visibility is really pretty darn good out here right now. Central Delta, I'm getting 6 to 10 feet of viz. I talked to Rob over at the Bass Hole. He said there are some pockets of the river that have maybe 3 and 4 feet visibility. More than likely down south they're still getting 2 feet of viz. I wouldn't worry about the viz. Fish what you have in front of you. The river's in good shape. The fish are cooperating, and you just have to get down and grind to get a few of the bigger fish. So those are the river conditions. Let's talk about stripers. They are definitely in the system, and they are everywhere throughout the system. A lot of the fish can be, in the backs of sloughs, the mouths of sloughs. They're in the channel. Joe from Core Fishing went out last week. He went out of Ladd, so this is local Stockton. Just a ton of fish, a ton of bait. He never got off the main channel, had nonstop action. A lot of shorts, but with the bigger baits and the walking baits and the topwaters, Joe was getting some nice 20 to 23 inch fish. He got his bigger fish not necessarily in the boils or where the birds were working, but fishing the edges of the boils. So when you see a lot of these fish coming up and you think they're small fish, not necessarily means you have to leave, but don't fish the boil itself, fish the edges of the boil. And that's a tip from Joe over at Core Fishing. Hopefully Joe and I are going to be out next Saturday, and we're going to do a trip, maybe in the Delta, maybe in the Sacramento. We don't know yet, but hopefully we'll get a video out of that for you. I talked to Joey Price from Priceless Fishing. Joey reported that the striper fishing out in the Sacramento side has slowed down a little bit this week, probably due to tides and moon phases. Maybe had a little something to do with the weather. He's looking at the next couple weeks with the new moon coming in that the stripers should really put on a show. So if you want to get out there and fish for stripers, maybe give Joey a call over at Priceless Fishing. Let's talk about largemouth bass real quick. The BAM tournament was out last week, 3-day tournament, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. It was their top 25 guys. They had some really, I'm going to just say, poor results. Out of 3 days of fishing, there wasn't one 20-pound bag that was produced. On their behalf, the guys that were fishing, they had a 30-day cutoff period, so these guys weren't out there doing a lot of practice, and they did have a 14-inch size limit rather than a lot of the tournaments have 12-inch size limits. So 14-inch size limit, not a lot of practice. Final day, the top 10 went out there. Luke Johns won it with 16.5, which is, I'm going to just say, it's not a disaster, but that's a tough weight to win a tournament with out here. It should have been higher, and it doesn't have anything to do with Luke or any of the guys fishing. It was just tough fishing. The top 10, Luke had 16.5. The bottom number 10 had 2 pounds. I think there was a 2-pound bag, a 4-pound bag, a 5-pound bag. A lot of guys were only able to weigh in a couple of fish. That tells you how difficult it was to put keeper-sized fish in the boat last weekend. It's extremely difficult to find fish over 14 inches. So with that being said, we're going to have Christian on here in a minute. I'll let you know how I have been doing, and I'll tell you the keys to my success over the last week. And then we're going to get Christian on, and he'll let us know how we can really start looking for some bigger fish. I mentioned at the start of the video that I think it's really important to go out and fish multi-species. I've been out with my son Nathan, I think every day this week. We have been doing well, but there are times when we've gotten into the salmon, there are times when we've gotten into the stripers, and as far as the largemouth bass, we are going through largemouth bass by the dozens in order to put those, I'll say, 14-inch to 3.5-pound fish in the boat. We haven't gotten anything over 3.5 pounds in the last week. We have been lucky to every day put a nice 5-fish limit in the boat. It hasn't been easy. One of the keys that I think for Nathan and I is having 2 people on the boat this time of year is a super advantage. You just cover more water. 2 guys, you've got 2 brains out there, thinking, I want to fish fast, I want to fish slow. You're just able to cover a lot more water. So having my son Nathan on board and being out there every day, moving around a lot, that's been the keys for us. The number one baits have been jerk baits, lipless crankbaits or rattle traps have been doing well for us. We've caught some fish on worms. I have not been punching. I haven't been frogging, and I think the punching and frogging as this water temperature starts to decrease is going to be going to get tougher and tougher. Hey, Christian, you want to come out and see if you can add anything?
What's up, Steve?
Well, we got you on the hot seat again. You're back in town, and I'm glad to see you. I know a lot of people that are fishing tournaments aren't real glad to see you back, but for those of you who don't know Christian, he is a local guide and now a national tournament angler. First year on the FLW circuit, the Toyota. It's the Pro-Am that you're fishing?
Yeah, I fished the Opens. I fished 8 out of the 9 Opens this year, and hopped around and the BAM stuff around here, and the MLF Toyotas. I fished 1 of them.
You've been really busy locally. I know you had you were number 2 here on the Delta for the FLW.
Yeah.
You had a top 3 finish for the Toyota circuit, and you've done well. First year on the circuit, man, you couldn't have had a better year. I mean,
yeah, it's really difficult. A lot different fishing back there. It's going to take me a few years to learn it. So
yeah,
home waters. If those kids came out here, they'd be in trouble, but they're not going.
Yeah. Well, back to the Delta. You're back in town now. You're going to be guiding for a while, and man, you had a dominating year on the Delta. Whether you were fishing the FLW, the local tournaments, I don't know how many of you won. We were talking a little bit about the numbers, but believe me, Christian has been dominating out here, and he just knows how to get on the bigger fish. Something that we're going to be talking about, because right now everybody is catching fish, but they're having trouble putting keeper-sized fish in the boat. We're at a transition. We're coming into winter. Everybody expects the fishing's going to be a little tougher. Give these guys some ideas on what they can do to not only put a few fish in the boat, but maybe get some of the bigger fish.
Yeah, you know what? So you definitely got to think about bait fish and where they're going to be trapping bait, whether that's a dead-end slough, marinas, ponds, so forth. They eat a lot of crawdads as well in the fall, but, you start really using a lot of white this time of year, and you could catch a lot of those 3 to 5 pounders, chucking a white chatterbait, chucking a rip bait, chucking an A-rig, anything white. We kept Sunday we went out, we caught like 3 fish over 4 pounds just on a spook, and white plopper, moving around and finding good grass near dead ends, marinas, ponds, anywhere they could trap bait. You really got to think about where they're going to trap bait.
So you're going to the backs, the sloughs?
I'm not going quite to the back, but you got to be somewhere near them. Mm-hmm. They don't, they trap them just on any rock bank, and they get in with the stripers big time. So Sunday when we were out whacking largemouth, we were catching stripers about every couple casts, and then all of a sudden you'd catch a fatty old green one.
So you mentioned catching some fish on top water. Water temperatures right now are around 60 degrees. When are you going to stop throwing the top waters? How long will they bite these things?
Delta's funny. You could catch them on top water all year round. A lot of Delta fish live in 2 foot of water all year round. But even right now, it's a little chilly in the mornings. Top water's a little goofy. It doesn't seem like we can really get on them till a little later, right when it really warms up, 10, 30, so on. So, but definitely you got way better options coming up here in the next couple weeks besides top water to put a solid number of good fish in the boat with these temps dropping. So,
and you like white. They're kind of transitioning from crayfish and sunfish to more bait fish.
Absolutely.
Okay. And how about speed? How long will you throw a chatterbait out here?
I will. You always got to have a chatterbait tied on.
Yeah.
You get in some of these areas, it don't matter how fast you reel it. You got 5, 6, 7 fish all grouped up, mm-hmm. and your chatterbait goes over the grass line, and now there's 6 bass looking at it. Someone's going to eat it. It don't matter how fast you're reeling it, and they will chase it down. They're feeding up for wintertime.
How about the bite windows? Are you looking for any specific tide or any time of the tide? And do you find that the bite windows are shorter? Do they, in a course of a day, are you looking at maybe 2 or 3 bite windows? Or are you just looking at, man, hopefully I get 1 bite window? I mean, what's the deal as far as timing the tides out here?
You know what? I've been in my head a little bit the last couple months. I really, really like low tide. I really feel like my bigger fish come on the low tide. It sucks them down, positions them much better. High tide, you could definitely chuck around over the grass, but those fish just roll up really tight on high tide. Spreads them out big time. Right now, though, low tide, everyone kind of, gets scared about low tide. They look out that it's going to be low when they go out. It's not a bad idea. You can throw top water down the edge. Those fish, a lot of times, don't sink crazy deep down on that weed edge. They like to, but those real active fish sit up high and, feed. And then, like I said, they're not afraid to chase down something. To fall, they chase.
What depth are you looking at low tide?
Anywhere from 5 5 inches to 3 feet.
So they'll still stay in super shallow water.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's Christian's 2 cents, and I think he said a lot. And you are going to be out here guiding the next few weeks?
Yeah, I'm going to be trying to guide a lot on the Delta. Clear Lake's been really good to me. I was able to win that BAM Pro-Am with 93 pounds. So, honestly...
Three 30-pound limits back to back.
Yeah, it was killer. So, I got a lot of trips booked up there. So, if anyone wants to call me and get out and learn a lot about the Delta or Clear Lake, and I want to help you guys be able to come out on your guys' own boat, and for you guys don't have to hire me.
For you guys that are starting to fish tournaments and you have a tournament partner, Christian is really open to having you guys on the boat, and have some communication before you come out with Christian, and let him know that you want to talk about tournament angling as a team. And Christian's got some really good ideas, and you do a lot of team fishing too. He's just not a pro that's out there with an amateur. He does a lot of team tournaments, and I think he has some really good ideas on how you should go about team fishing, how partners should work together, how different baits kind of correspond, from front to back, and things that you can do to really up your tournament angling with your partner. All right, so you heard it. I'll put Christian's number up there, and I'm going to tell you right off the bat, Christian's not a cheap guide. You're going to have to put a little skin in the game, but I think a good guide can advance your bass fishing skills probably in one day what it would take you to learn in 5 years, and over that 5 years course of time, you're going to save yourself a lot of money knowing what baits you should be looking at, what baits to stay away from, how to set them up. It's just not that one day of fishing. So Christian, thanks for coming on.
Absolutely, Steve. Thanks for having me.
You gonna buy me a cup of coffee or something?
We're gonna go smack some pancakes right now.
God darn! I thought you said we were gonna go out and smack some fish.
Not
I've been smacking a lot of 12 inchers. All right, guys. Thanks so much for watching. If you see me on the water, make sure you stop by, give me a report. I want to thank all you guys for sending in the reports. I know it's going to get tough out here. And for you guys that are out there, send me a report. If you're not catching fish, other people want to hear about that. It's just not guys like this joker here that go out and seem to catch fish every time. They want to hear about the guys that are out there fishing the weekends and struggling just as much as they want to hear about the guys that are catching the big fish. So you get out of here now. We'll see you guys on the river.